Welcome back to Studies in Maritime Policy. I'm your host, Dr. Aidan Johnson. Today we have a two-part series on whales and maritime policy. Just before the break, you heard me speak about policies protecting whales. Here now to talk about policies that negatively affect whales is my co-host, Dr. Mesa. Welcome to today's show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. It's great to be here, and I really want to shed some light on this very important subject. The subject is noise pollution in the ocean and how it negatively affects whales. After this, I'd like to display a video showing you just exactly how it affects them through ocean floor sounds, ship traffic, military sonar communication really negatively affects them, and propeller noise. As we all know, sound does carry much further and in all directions and even louder in the ocean. So we're going to take a look at the video in a second. In the oceans, where distances can be long and visibility can be short, many animal species rely on sound to communicate, navigate, and monitor their surroundings. The haunting cries and clicks of whales are both beautiful but vital to their survival. Using songs, they can communicate to one another across several hundred kilometers of the ocean. Whale sonar allows these animals to find food, safely travel along irregular coastlines, and migrate to and from breeding and feeding grounds. Some whales use bursts of loud noise to drive and confuse their prey. As you can see here, you just see the two mother whales and their calves just riding safely through the coast. These activities are becoming more and more difficult as man-made noise in the sea has increased dramatically. Ship traffic, oil and gas exploration, scientific research activities, and the use of military sonar, like I said before, have caused an increase in marine noise of 2 orders of magnitude in the last 60 years. Recent studies suggest that noise pollution can harm whales directly by damaging their hearing, in extreme cases and causing internal bleeding and death. More commonly, it appears that the excessive and prolonged noise can cause behavioral changes that interfere with their health and survival of these animals. In this activity here, you see one whale and they'll start to strain each other as soon as you start turning on any of these noises. So here's what's awesome about this video. We can reset, start, what's the effect of sonar communication. So here you have the sonar communications. It's sort of affecting them, but as soon as you add ship traffic to that, along with propeller noise, you can see how they're slowly losing control, and the ocean floor noise on top of that, they just go and beach themselves. The exposure and the dehydration damages them. The best way I could describe this is that we're filling their ocean with noise and destroying their natural way of life. There's no longer the issue of harpooners back in Moby Dick day, but an issue with man-made appliances.
And so what are we doing about that?
It's sad to have to answer this question with outdated policies, because that's all we really have on this topic. There is a government protocol that was made explaining that seismic surveys should be done, which are very negative, but that no animal should be exposed to noise greater than 180 decibels.
But isn't it true that with the way that sound travels through water, 180 decibels is the equivalent of standing within a jet engine's reach for a human?
Exactly. I mean, for standing in arm's throw reach to a jet engine, that's already 140 decibels. And you can imagine how loud it could be in the ocean. It's outstanding. It's kind of a contradictory in itself. These whales are facing far worse than that. Behavior changes are happening to humpback whales with more than 120 miles away from the sound where it actually took place. So it answers what you just said pretty much. It's ridiculous. It's insane. That says a lot about protocol. It says a lot about the government and its lack of efficiency when it comes to this topic. An Interior Department and the government acknowledge the possibility of wildlife's deaths because of excessive noise. But it's not that easy to calculate an exact number when it comes to this. An example of this would be the bottlenose dolphins, and the number of deaths and injuries could range from 2,091 annually, or it could range to 11,000, almost 12,000. Causes that are cited from these collisions, well, the cause of this is these animals running into collisions with survey vessels, which are a direct result of these concussive sound waves.
And that is a very big issue because ship strikes have been on the rise in areas with seismic survey vessels. And yet, why do you think that these policies aren't being updated with such clear evidence showing that the areas in which these deaths are higher are in congruence with the increase of seismic surveying?
No, that's a very good question. It's strange how the government isn't really doing anything about this, and I feel like it is because of like sonar communication. The military kind of wants to do their own thing about this. It's like, okay, the whales. I mean, there's so many laws protecting these whales, but without the surveying and everything, there's the only way that they really know whether or not whales are in the vicinity is if contractors do scans with binoculars. It's like, how much can you really see with binoculars? Honestly, I feel like something must be changed, especially with the seismic surveys. The government has actually tried changing it a while back after the Deepwater Horizon incident happened. Obama administration kind of put a ban on that, but it was lifted in 2017, so that says a lot. But not only that is that the government is trying to decrease seismic surveying by pretty much vamping down the sound and maybe making it at a slower range to give wildlife, whales, dolphins, time to get away from the seismic sound. So they almost give it like a fear kind of like nip, and then they hit it with a big wave, which kind of makes sense, but I don't know how effective that is, honestly. I mean, that's the big thing that we're trying to figure out. And like I said before, another thing that contractors are doing is that they're scanning the area with binoculars. Another kind of insufficient way of going about this. I'm not sure, but the Noise Pollution Act of 1972 hasn't been updated. And I don't think it really touches upon the idea of ocean noise pollution. There is another act that I'll get into in a second. I'll show a picture and talk about that. Okay, so here's a great image about what really goes on with these whales and how they get beached and how they lose themselves. The biggest question here is that don't industries already have to take measures to limit the possibility of damaging the marine life? And the answer is that the requirements really vary from region to region. In many places around the world, surveyors, like as I said before, they do the slow ramp up of the air gun strength in the beginning of the surveys to warn off the animals, but really they don't know how effective this is. Surveyors might be required to limit their operations in areas where endangered animals are present and have been previously observed, and shut down if animals enter a certain zone. The overall benefits from many of these measures are still really unknown. We feel that more needs should be done to safeguard marine species. Honestly, I suggest that we call for more restrictions on activities in biological sensitive habitats based on data that we would collect. In an ideal world, you would want to have a good inventory of data on the marine animals present in a region and where these animals breed, even feed. Then you would use that information to decide where to survey and when to survey, and check afterwards whether there have been any unforeseen outcomes. Secondly, I feel like we'd want overall noise limits, to set limits based on monitoring the accounts of cumulative contributions to noise. Actually, in Australia, their Ocean Data Network portal is a good example of just that data collection. The European Union is also proposing putting limits on overall noise, but the United States doesn't consider the cumulative impact of all their activities when giving out survey permits, and I feel like this has a big deal to deal with the military and the sonar experiences. Third, there are already new techniques that are already in use as far as energy at lower levels, but still, it doesn't really reduce the risk to marine species. We think that intergovernmental science coordination is critical, especially when it comes to sonar. We want to see the effects of cumulative noise incorporated in environmental impact assessments, and I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to this topic and this policy.
You bring up a lot of great points, and there are definitely a lot of issues that still need to be solved and a lot of data that needs to be collected. Thank you very much for bringing this up, and I hope that it'll be fixed sometime in the near future. And unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us and tuning in for this two-part series on whales and maritime policy. On the show, Studies in Maritime Policy. Thank you again for tuning in, and thank you to my co-host,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Mesa, for joining us and enlightening us on this wonderful topic.